This episode contains adult language and adult humor.
Since when have trumpet players ever been considered adults?
If you are easily offended by these types of conversations, consider switching to the oboe. Welcome to the Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. My guest for this episode is Danny Falcone. Danny is a phenomenal player who is based in Las Vegas. Among his numerous accomplishments, he has most recently played and toured with Celine Dion and is a part of Lady Gaga's new jazz and piano show. Danny also holds down the lead book in Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns, a collection of some of Sin City's nastiest players. And I say nasty in the best way possible. So, pour yourself a big glass, pull up a chair, and let the hang begin. All right, welcome to this week's episode of the Trumpet Gurus Hang, and I am here with Danny Falcone. And if you don't know Danny, you're going to get to know him today. Danny is an amazing player, and I was actually in the get in the mood today. I was just jamming to some Santa Fe, the Fat City Horns, and just every time I listen to that, I just I get chills, man. Yeah, Danny's a great player, great guy, and we're just gonna get to know each other today because we've never met. This is our first time actually meeting.
Yeah, it is.
I'm excited about this. This is a genuine hang. So, Danny, how's life down in Vegas, man?
Well, it's been a little strange since lockdown, that's for sure. All the work is gone, all the casinos dried up, and they just reopened. But at this point, the social distancing thing is going to cause some problems trying to get back to work again. So we're all trying to figure out how we're going to do it and where it's going to happen. So in the meanwhile, we've been trying to do stuff online like everybody else, just to keep things going.
Right. So once the casinos open, all right, you said they are open, but do they have like a phase-in plan for putting the live shows out?
Yeah, there's nothing at the moment that I know of how they plan to do the shows. I know Cirque du Soleil is, sorry, my family just walked in. Cirque du Soleil just announced that they're not going back to work at least for some time, any of those shows.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what's going to happen. We work a lot with Lady Gaga here in Vegas, and she's got a 6,000 seat theater, and I don't know how they're going to do that. How are we going to get people in there? What are we going to do? And in order to do that, and for her, either she's going to have to take a huge cut in salary, right, if they have less people, or not perform at all. So I don't know how that's all going to play out. We're all kind of anxiously waiting to see what happens here.
Yeah. And I mean, playing on stage is, depending on the room. I mean, you either have plenty of space or you have no space at all. So
yeah, like with Santa Fe, we play in a pretty intimate room. It's maybe 200, 250. And so, how are we're trying to figure all that out. We're in the middle. A bunch of the guys in the band have been researching how we could possibly do live streams for that and, keep things going and where we would orient ourselves so that we're still, following the guidelines. And it's daunting, man, but, we'll get through it. It'll happen.
Innovation,
really there, so the way will be there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, thank God for the plexiglass shields around drummers. I think just everybody's going to be having their own little personal QB to stand in at some point. But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah. So you were saying like you're doing the shows with Lady Gaga. You're also doing. Are you still doing the Celine Dion gigs?
Well, not at the moment. Celine we did about a 9-year run with her, both in Vegas and on tour around the world. And then that she decided to close shop here. I think this kind of a typical thing is after so many years, they don't want to have too much fatigue of being, around all the time. That was a hell of a run. So I think what's going to happen is she's going to, they were going on tour, but the tour got canceled because of this. And then the word is that she's coming back to Vegas probably in 2021. So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with that either. I'm not sure. Everything's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, that's very true. So I mean, you're a lifer in Vegas.
Yeah, I grew up here. My dad moved here when I was a baby, and I grew up in Vegas. And then I went away to school at USC, and I was there for 3 years, and then came back to Vegas because I decided that Well, I was ill. That was the big reason I came back. I had to get some medical attention. And once I got back here, I just felt more, it's more at home. And I was already established here and I had work here. So it just kind of picked back up again. And I've stayed since.
Yeah, yeah. So for people that don't know, Danny's father also was a very talented musician, and so he was the musical director for Frank Sinatra, correct?
Right. Pianist and musical director. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So you got to hang around a lot of really cool people growing up.
It was a hell of a way to start, let me tell you, because I would go to every single time they were in Vegas. And that was like a real residency, that everybody calls their stay here in Vegas a residency now. But Sinatra was here, probably 6 times a year. And every time I would go to all the rehearsals and then a couple of the shows as a young kid. I was between like 6 and 16, kind of in that period. And yeah, I mean, that hearing that, Charlie Turner, lead trumpet player,
Hmm.
actually gave me my first trumpet.
Awesome.
So that's how I got started. And yeah, it was unbelievable, man, listening to that kind of stuff all the time. And, at the time, you don't understand the depth of what you're hearing. You don't know the importance of it.
Right.
At 8 years old or whatever. But once I got it like 13, I started playing trumpet when I was 11, maybe just about 12. And then it started to make sense to me a little more who, Mr. Sinatra was and all of that, these musicians.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was already in there. I got to hear it a long time. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sure you have an affinity to that type of music. Yeah, that air. Yeah. Yeah, and there's something about it, man. Just the arrangements, the energy of that. It's, I mean, as opposed to, today we got a lot of energy in the music. I mean, like stuff you guys do with Santa Fe and stuff that's really driving, that's really kicking. But when you had that big orchestra and those amazing, like the Nelson Riddle arrangements,
greatest, man. It's the
yeah.
best I've ever written, in my opinion. It's the greatest lead trumpet book ever written. Let alone everything else about it. But as far as a trumpet player, it just doesn't get any better than that. It's so musical and so swinging, and
Yeah.
it's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to inherit that music library. I actually have a tremendous amount of that original music.
Oh.
Yeah, that was bequeathed to my dad, who then gave it to me. So we actually have a show that may be going to Broadway. It was going to go to Broadway until this hit, and now we're seeing if we can get back in there. But it's a recreation of a concert, a Sinatra concert, with all the original arrangements and a singer that is just the best there is. His name's Bob Anderson.
Oh,
And
man.
so yeah, it's called Frank the Man the Music, and it's amazing. Yeah,
Oh, I hope that gets off the ground because that would be amazing to listen to.
yeah,
Oh,
that's real cool.
yeah. So you think you'll do the show?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. That's the plan. I mean, we had it was all set up and arranged. The money was there. We had Ava Price, who's an amazing producer on Broadway. Has produced all many Tony Award-winning musicals. So she was behind it and was finding us a room, and looked like everything was going to happen. And then this all broke. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it all plays out once Broadway opens up again.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope so. I promised my wife I'd take her to a show for her 50th birthday next year, and so so maybe it'll be that one. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
And you're in Pennsylvania, is that where you are?
Yeah, I'm in Pennsylvania. Yeah, so yeah, I'm not too far from Philly and New York and everything. So it's an easy drive or easy train ride or whatever you want to do.
Sure.
But yeah, so when you're working, I mean, I know you have a lot of demands between the kind of stuff you guys do at Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns, which is again, if people haven't listened to this, I can't say this enough, and you probably hear me say this another 10 times at least. Just check them out. It's just killer stuff. But you guys are kind of, and I don't say this in a negative way. You're all over the place. The demands of that book. I mean, from the funk to the Latin to you're bouncing around a little bit, and I believe I remember reading something about you that you said about that was like the most demanding book that you have to play. So I mean, like in terms of transitioning between that level of high energy to a gig like a Lady Gaga or a Celine Dion or one of the shows that you might be doing in one of the rooms. I mean, do you feel like it's it's a stretch for you to bounce back and forth? Do you have to do like a big mental readjustment, or is it just kind of second nature
No,
now?
not really. I mean, I think that, both, I know it seems odd to think that Celine would have high energy stuff, because everybody's used to her with the
Right.
ballads.
Yeah.
But actually, Celine really she wanted to be a rock and roll singer. Like she's into AC/DC and, that kind of stuff. So we do put a lot of high energy stuff in that show. So it was kind of a fun show to do because there was so much variety between orchestral type stuff and then, high note stuff and funk. And I mean, you'd be surprised if you actually saw the show.
Hmm.
We did some Prince medley. We did,
Oh, cool.
so it was pretty happening, playing wise, it was fun
Right.
to do. So
Mhm.
see, it was similar, nothing is as demanding as Santa Fe for sure. I mean, nothing. I mean, Gaga's got a ton of hard stuff, but it's spaced out. There's
Mhm.
a couple of tunes where it's not. Santa Fe is just one after another. It's about an hour and a half of nonstop, just as hard as it can get stuff,
Yeah, just pounding.
Yeah, yeah. So it's good because that kind of keeps things in shape. When we were working, one night of that was equal to like 3 nights of any other gig. So, it kept me in really good shape. Now that I
Mhm.
don't have it, it's been a little more difficult to keep the chops up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think there's so many people that are facing that right now. It's like, oh my God, when the gigs finally start opening up, I hope I have the chops to play it.
I'm gonna do it. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's one thing to practice. Like I'll practice a couple hours, but it's a whole nother thing when you have to play at that intensity level. And so I try to read through some stuff or, record myself and just but it's still not the same. I can tell that these muscles up here, the ones that really dig in when you're tired, they start feeling it. I can feel it up there when things aren't working like they should. So we'll see how that all plays out when things come back to life here.
So in Fat City, who does the primary horn arrangements?
Yeah, so there's 2 guys. There's Dave Richardson, keyboard player, and Nathan Tenoy, who's our trombonist. And so they do the majority of the stuff,
Okay.
the horns. Both ridiculous. I mean, unbelievable writing.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the stuff there, it's mind blowing. So I'm sure it's chop blowing too.
Nathan and I have known each other now, ugh, I mean, more than 20 years, and have pretty much played together almost nonstop. So we're like brothers. So I razz him all the time, and he gets back at me by writing, things. He keeps adding a ledger line,
Yeah, yeah. That's why every section I play with, I try to make sure I'm the one writing the charts. That way I control the dialogue. So, but well, you I mentioned earlier that you went to USC, and so you had a chance to work with some really great people up there. Gary Grant and Bobby Shue and some other people like that. Charlie Davis. Uh, Man, that had to be a great time.
Oh man, you know it. I mean, that was that at that point in my life, I had kind of transitioned from wanting to be Conrad Gazzo to wanting to be Jerry Hay, you know, and Chuck Finley, those guys. So I went to LA. I had the great pleasure and fortune to do a couple of recording sessions with my father in LA, and he introduced me to those guys early on, and I wanted it so badly that I just bugged the hell out of them until they agreed to teach me, and and so I was able to, be around those guys, and that was most important, was just hanging out and watching what they did, seeing how, it was mind blowing. I mean, absolutely incredible. Those guys are the greatest of all time, at what they do. There's nobody
Oh,
better.
man, yeah. I remember the first time I heard, like, really knew what I was listening to, and I was listening to the Jerry Hay horns. It was Off the Wall, and I I just heard, and it's like, this is like nothing I've ever heard before in my life, and just I was hooked from that point on.
Me too, man. Yeah, groundbreaking. What he did and is still doing, changed the course of music. I mean, it was that important, especially for me, for guys like me and guys that like bands like Tower Power and Santa Fe and, horn stuff. There was nothing like it. And certainly he just kept upping the game. Every single time I heard him do something, it just, it was crazy.
Yeah,
I still listen to that stuff all the time, all
yeah,
the time. When I drive, I put on, I'll say, play Al Jarreau or play, because that stuff is just so unbelievable. It's so
Yeah.
great and classic. It never sounds old, never sounds tired, you know.
Yep. Actually, I on my Spotify playlist, I have a Jerry Hay playlist.
Yeah.
So it's just I just go through and I just find all of the Killer Horn tunes, put it on there,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's what I love to listen to. But what was Gary like as a teacher? I mean, I know Bobby and I know his approach to stuff, but I never really I haven't had the pleasure yet of meeting Gary. I hope to one day have him on this show as well. But what did you pick up from him?
Well, Gary's, first of all, he's one of the nicest people. He just couldn't be a nicer man, and he was so generous with his time with me. And I appreciated that so much. But I was a young kid, and I was studying with like 6 guys. I was trying like a kid in the candy shop.
Right.
So I didn't really put in as much as I should have with each one because I was spread so thin.
Hmm.
At that age, at 18 years old, I didn't. I just got Chuck Finley and Jerry Hay and all these people. I just wanted to be like them, and so I was studying with different people and couldn't really give 100% all the time. But Gary was teaching me the Atom routine,
Hmm.
and we worked out of the Bud Brisbois Trumpets Today book.
Hmm.
And yeah, he was working on, at that time when I moved there, I could play. I was a good player. I wasn't great. I had a lot of problems. I puffed one cheek. I'm not made to play the trumpet. I can tell you that.
Hmm.
Physically, my chops are as bad as you can get for playing. My overbite, teeth are crooked, bottom teeth are jacked up. And so I had a lot of bad habits. So those guys were kind of straightening me out, kind of getting all of that stuff that wasn't working right. They were trying to put it back together for me.
Hmm.
So it was mostly fundamental stuff that we were working on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, he's just couldn't be greater. And just it's osmosis with those guys, just being around them, hearing that sound that they get. There's nothing like it, man. I mean, it's just, it was incredible as a young guy to be around that and hear that all the time. Incredible.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
Well, there's a lot to be said about being in the midst of things like that. I mean, I I can pretty much bet my bottom dollar that you've worked your ass off to accomplish what you've accomplished in your life. Nothing was handed to you, but there is certainly something to be said about being in the positions that you were in, where you were exposed to really high caliber musicians and quality music your entire life. And even if you're not paying attention to it, some of those things, they just get ingrained in your psyche. Yeah, and if you take it.
Listen, I'm the first to admit it. Being the son of my father was a great advantage to me because I was able to be around the best of the best all the time as a kid, not understanding it, but absorbing it.
Mhm.
And then when I got to be 15, I started working on the Strip. I would go to high school and then I would go to the Strip and do a show. I'd play fifth trumpet with Jerry Lewis or Vita Moreno or whomever, right?
Right.
And yeah, that was my father, without a doubt. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. But he always told me, like, if you don't work at it, or if you come in and you suck, you're done. That's it. I don't care if you're my son or not. So he had an unbelievable work ethic, my dad, and he tried to instill that in my brother and I. My brother's a phenomenal drummer, great guy, and so yeah, we worked our butts off. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you have to. There's no getting around it on trumpet. You can't, just because somebody hands you something, you either make it or you don't. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
exactly.
had to do the work. But yeah, I'm super fortunate that that's how my musical career began. It was, being around great people and hearing that and learning from them just by osmosis.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure that there are a lot of things that you picked up that were just not related to, the technical side of things. Like the work ethic and things like that. I mean, I know for me that was always a big thing, whether it be in music. My main portion of my career, like for the past 30 some years, the thing that I did the most was I was a martial arts teacher, and just being around people that are just such high quality, you start to pick up on the things about their attitudes about life and their approach to the things that they do. So, like, what do you think is like one of the most impactful things that you picked up from either your dad or from some of the guys that you're hanging out with at that time?
Yeah. Well, in Vegas, I think I've talked about this before with others, but it was a different, well, let me start with this. I would say the first thing was my dad, I learned a lot about character and integrity. That was like the big thing. And he never talked about it, but I saw it. You know, my dad was the kind of guy that would stand up for his musicians. You know, if somebody was being mistreated, he would never allow it. You know, he would, in fact, I was on the gig when he quit a job because the celebrity was disrespecting his lead alto player who he had brought out of retirement, right, to do this certain gig. Mm-hmm. This celebrity, who I won't mention, was being extremely disrespectful. And my dad was making a huge amount of money with this person and quit on the spot. Said, I won't work with you. Like, you know, you're going to be like this. I'm done. And so, you know, that doesn't happen very much. You don't see somebody sacrifice something that's, you know, so valuable out of principle.
Right.
You know, so
right. Yeah.
That for me was a big, you know, I learned a lot from him. And then Tommy Perello, who was my trumpet teacher in Las Vegas, you know, he taught me a tremendous amount about balance. You know, his whole thing was everything's balanced, right? So if you're, I mean, this carried through with life skills, but in trumpet, he would say, you know, if you're practicing an hour a day loud, then go practice an hour a day soft. If you're playing for 2 hours, go rest for 2 hours. You know, it's a yin and a yang. It's a constant balance. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he taught me that about life and being in a musical environment, how to, you know, just watching him, how he behaved around others. You know, as a super intense lead trumpet player, he was super kind, and, you know, you'd never know you never know what he could do, right? He wouldn't just do it to show people he would keep it all in. And if it called for it, he would let it out. But he wasn't an ego guy. He wasn't somebody that tried to, you know, promote himself above anybody else. You know, those kind of things really stuck with me. I felt I learned a lot just about life with these people, you know, how to treat other people and how to get along with people, you know. So that was super important, watching how they interacted in that realm, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, those are huge lessons, and yeah, those are things I think everybody needs to know. Those are the keys to success anywhere in life. But with the shows in Vegas, I mean, I know that there's a period where the work really dried up. You know, a lot of the rooms stopped having the bands, the larger acts. How did you manage that time? How did you navigate that?
Sure. Well, what happened was when I went away to USC, things were going great, right? A lot of work in Vegas. And then while I was there, the city, basically the musicians union, went on strike because the Tropicana Hotel decided they were going to go to taped music for their show rather than have a live orchestra. So the musicians union struck, all this happened, and basically the hotels had more money and time and wore them out and basically bankrupt the union. And eventually they succumbed, and all these shows started going to tape music. So when I came back home from being in school, there weren't many gigs, you know, and there weren't a lot of musicians left here. They had to go do other things, become realtors or leave town, go to LA, whatever. So the only thing that was left when I got back were lounges, right? So the lounges provide free entertainment. You can walk in, sit down, have a drink, whatever, and there's usually a band. And I was fortunate enough, the first one that I did was a fun little thing, and I became the musical director for it, and I learned how to program synths, and you know, I got onto like Digital Performer and learned all of that multi-tracking and all that stuff. And so I learned a lot about technology. So that was kind of cool. I played trumpet also in it. And I, you know, tried to, like we did Earth, Wind and Fire and stuff like that, trying to keep my chops up. But really there wasn't a whole lot of that. And that lasted for about 2 years with that band. And then I got fortunate to fall into a band called Diane Diaz and the Big Fish, which was kind of like a smaller version of Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns. Very intense, really hard arrangements. In fact, many of the members of our band now were in that band at one point or another. And that band really helped launch, that's how I got my first road gig with Tom Jones, was because of that band. His musical director would come out and watch our band when they were in town. And over the course of a couple of years, he he really took a liking to me, and I auditioned, and then it was unfortunate event for my friend Dan Miller happened. He was playing trumpet with Tom, and he threw his back out, called me, and I went in, and that's how it all started for me with Tom. So, yeah. But if it wasn't for the lounges and you know, having that showcase, I probably never would have gotten that gig. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a blessing in disguise, you know.
Yeah, it works together. So, I mean, I know you said that you know, with Celine, that you did some touring with her. Are there any other acts that you've done a lot of road work with, or have you primarily been in Vegas?
No, I've done a lot. I mean, Tom was I was with Tom 2.5 years, and most of that was touring. And we went all over the world. You know, we spent summers out in Europe and Australia, New Zealand. That was incredible. So that was a really cool. And then I spent a lot of time with Paul Anka, touring with Paul Anka, on and off. Did a lot with him. And then Bette Midler. I worked with Bette Midler for a couple of years and did some touring with her, as well as we had a show in Vegas that ran, which was cool. And a couple other acts, like Martin Rivera, the guy from the Philippines, toured with him for a while. And then Celine, we did a lot of touring with Celine. Yeah, mostly every summer we would go out on tour. You know.
Now, how did that work with your house gigs? Because I mean, I remember having a conversation with Wayne Bergeron about like when you're entrenched in the LA studio scene, you become somewhat hesitant about taking road gigs because, you know, when you're gone, you know, you stop getting the calls. So how did that work for you in Vegas?
Yeah, well, another blessing was I got this job with a show called Jersey Boys, and that ran for, I want to say it was like 8 years, and they allowed me to sub out 50% of the time. So what would happen is when Celine would come to town, I would sub out and do that, and then in the summers I would go on tour, and between the two, it ended up being just about 50%. And so it worked out perfectly. So I could do that. And that way when I would come back home, I'd have a job. And then when something came into town like Bette or Celine or whatever, I could sub it out. And it was really an incredible flexibility and blessing for that, man, or else I would have been in big trouble, you know, because neither one, you know, I would have gone nuts if I had to play Jersey Boys 52 weeks a year every night. You know, I would have gone a little bananas. I needed the break, you know.
Right.
And so as much as I loved it, I'm not saying anything negative about it, but just doing the same thing all the time, you start to go crazy, you know. So it really was a great job for something like that. It really allowed me that kind of flexible schedule that I needed to do the other things. It worked out great.
Yeah. What's the craziest show you've had to do?
And in what way?
Well, you pick the way.
Jeez, I don't know. Crazy. Well, I did a show called Storm at the Mandalay Bay. It was like Ricky Martin's people put it together. This was like 2000, right around 2000, right when I came off of Tom Jones, actually. And it was crazy in that, okay, well, the band was great. And that's how I ended up meeting Jerry Lopez, the leader of Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns. He was the musical director for it. So he put the band together. And I was fortunate enough to get the trumpet chair on it. That band, the horn section, there were only 3 horns, but we were integral into the show. So we were moving all the time. We were actually part of the show. And that theater had probably, 80-foot ceiling, right? It was massive. And so they built the sets were built into the theater itself. So there was a ramp that would go from the stage about maybe 30 feet in the air and then have a little platform up there that we would play on at times. We'd have to navigate this thing without any handrails or anything. And it was barely wide enough to walk up, you know, so in the dark and all the noise, there were many chances for all of us to fall. Right. They had a mechanical palm tree that probably went 50 feet in the air and out over the crowd. And they had the 3 horn players sitting at the top of this thing as they moved it out on an arm like this. And we had no safety at all. We were hanging on. It was kind of nuts, man. I mean, there were plenty of times where we thought, yeah, this is it, you know. Yeah. But it was cool, man. That was a really great show. In musically, it was great because Jerry put together, and we had sax player with Jerry Hayes' group, and now I'm so embarrassed that
Larry Williams.
Yeah, Larry. So Larry came in and did a lot of the arranging for us, he was on site, so I got to hang with him and watch what he did. And yeah, musically, that show was incredible. I mean, it was really great. And it was because of that show that I ended up really getting Santa Fe, because Jerry got to know me and my playing. And then I was able to it just kind of worked out that I worked into the band when somebody left. So.
That sounds absolutely insane.
That was crazy. It was wild, man.
Oh man. So did you ever, going back I keep going back to the Sinatra thing. Did you ever get a chance to actually just like sit in with the band or play with the band at all?
I played once. With him at the Riviera in Vegas one time. And that was, what can you do? It's just craziness. I was really young. I want to say I was like 18 or 19 when I did that. And I don't remember much about it because I was so nervous. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I was just sitting on the fourth trumpet book. I was fourth or fifth, whatever it was. And man, I was just scared out of my mind. This is Frank Sinatra. And it's just brutal. But yeah, no, he carried, and that certainly would have been something that my dad wouldn't do. He wouldn't put me on that band. You know what I mean? That would look wrong. Right. There were plenty of guys. I was not in that caliber at that point. And, so certainly it wouldn't have been right. But to put me on a fifth trumpet part for one show, that was cool. I was able to do that, it was, Sinatra, in my opinion, is still the greatest singer of all time. And that music is so iconic and difficult to try to reproduce it the way that it should be played. I mean, you hear it all the time, and sometimes it's difficult to listen to, because you know what it should be like. Mm-hmm. So every time I have the opportunity to play that book now, I really try my best to get into that mindset and honor, the guys that came before me, because last thing I want to do is step all over it or, embarrass myself by doing something I shouldn't do. So I put a lot of time in when it's time to get ready to play that show. I really try to dig in and listen and emulate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that time, man, there were just so many. I mean, there's still a lot of great trumpet players in the world. I'm not taking away from anybody, but like when you think about the talent that was in Las Vegas, during that period, you had just some absolute bulls, and it was the best. There
was, and I've said this many times, and I actually was just listening to your interview with Wayne, and Wayne talked about this, that the lead trumpet players in Las Vegas and during that time were some of the best in the world, if not the best in the world, because what they had to do was so demanding. And not only was the show difficult, but they'd have to do the show 2 times, 6 days a week, right? Some shows more. Tommy Perello was doing 6 shows a day in the height of Vegas, 6 shows. And if you could hear one of those shows, I promise you, you go, oh man, no way. It's just ridiculous endurance. And I don't know how anybody could do 6, but he's that kind of guy. He's just, one of the greats of all time. But all those guys, John Harner was here, Bobby Shue was here, Roger Ingram's been here, Cat Anderson was here, Gazzo actually played in Vegas for a while. Just monstrous lead trumpet players. And Mike Paulson, I don't know if you know Mike, but another monster trumpet player. Lots and lots of guys were just, here and doing things and beneath the radar. So guys didn't, it wasn't on records, right? So people weren't hearing it. But if you came to see the show, how the hell is that happening? How are these guys doing this stuff? And they play everything. Piccolo trumpet, like the Follies show I think it was Follies at the Trop, had everything from, piccolo trumpet to lead trumpet to classical trumpet. I mean, you had to do everything and right back to back to back to back. And tough, man, real tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the worst gig I ever had was just doing a circus gig, and that was, a lot of the just play, and you never know what's coming up next, bouncing around from style to style. And I did a summer of that and said, okay, that's good. But I mean, I couldn't imagine, like you said, especially back in the heyday when you're doing those, like said about Tommy doing 6 shows a day. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Honestly, I just, that kind of endurance. And those guys were playing big equipment too. This wasn't like now where, myself and some other guys have tried to really try to become more efficient, find stuff that plays itself almost. These guys were playing like, Tommy was playing a Benge 5X, right? With a, what did he have? Either a 19 throat or a 21 throat, something like that.
Holy cow.
Bob Reeves mouthpiece. Yeah, man. I mean, it's like, it's inhuman. I have his horn, okay? This is a true story. So when back in the 90s, he decided to make a change. He'd played that horn basically his whole career. So I had a Bach Sterling Silver 37 that was really good. And he played it and he loved it. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'll trade you. Right? So I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have Corello's 5X, man. It's on everything, like Woody Herman, Stan Kenton, Elvis, Kerry James, all those recordings was this horn. So I said, yeah, I didn't even think twice. I took it. And I tried for a year to play that horn. No possible way. I mean, it was so big and open. There was no resistance in that horn at all. None. And I think to myself, how the hell did he do that? He's my size of a guy too. He's not a big guy. And he played that thing, he'd blow the walls down with that all day long and never get tired, baffling to me how you could have that kind of endurance. But, I guess growing up doing it every day and, you don't know the difference.
Yeah.
They get used to it. But God almighty, what a sound, and that's probably why, because they had this huge equipment, big throat. He was putting a ton of air through, and boy, oh boy, man, it was something to hear, let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, I know when I was younger, I used to play on really big equipment and kind of started to tone it down in the past few years, trying to be more efficient, like you said. But also, I mean, and obviously I don't know as much or have as much experience as somebody like Tommy, but for me, I think the biggest difference was that playing in my younger days, I was trying to get a sound that went like that. To fill the room that way. And then now where most of my gigs are, I'm playing in a funk band and it's be on the mic because there's no way you're going to outplay the rhythm section in those situations. So it's just trying to keep the sound compact and unidirectional as opposed to omnidirectional.
Yes.
So
and that's, it's so funny, man, because that's all I've done since, okay, so like in Vegas, when I was doing the lounges, okay, so before that I was playing a Benge. I was playing like a 3X or a Clicchio 1S2. And I was playing a Bob Reeves with a 26 grill, big. And I was trying to sound like Gazzo. I was just trying to take down the room. So then when I started getting in the lounges, the pit bosses, I'll never forget, this is true. We were at the New York. And so the stage is like, imagine the stage is here and then the casino is straight in front of you, right past.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we were playing, Cecilia Noel and the Wild Clams. We were playing Earth, Wind & Fire. We were playing Tower Power. And, there's a lot of screaming trumpet stuff. And the pit boss came in and he came up to the leader and he pointed at me. He goes, can you have him turn around? And behind me was a red curtain. So like he literally wanted me to play into the curtain. Like they don't want to hear it out there. They don't want, because that is carrying where the rest of the music isn't. So somebody's sitting there playing roulette and hearing a bunch of high G's, they're getting aggravated. So I had to figure out how to take my sound and do this. And that's the evolution of what I've done since that was probably 96. Mm-hmm. And so I went to a Bobby Shoe trumpet, right? And then and worked on that. And then I got on Tom Jones's band and I had figured out how to do this. And now I needed to go back to this again.
Right.
So I went into a real tailspin. But when I got off that band and I started just honing down, and especially with Santa Fe, having to play that kind of stuff, there's no way you can play like, I've had a lot of incredible trumpet players come and play that book and, they all feel the same way. Like there's just no way. You can't do that all night. Mm-hmm. You get killed. You got to learn how to do this. So that's what I've done. And I've finally gotten to the point where I've figured out for me the right equipment, the right balance of resistance. But now with the Sinatra gig coming, I just bought a Burbank Benge 2X and that gets a little more of this, which is kind of what I need to play, Frank Sinatra music. When I try to play it on my Constellation, it's just, it's getting out there, but it's not spreading in the section. So it doesn't give a lot of confidence to my other players. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or to me, because I don't hear it behind the horn. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually now at this point in my life, beginning to try to open up again a little more and get away from this, because it starts to be a crutch. if you don't have a monitor or a shield in front of you and
Yeah.
you're doing this, man, 2 tunes in, if you can't hear, you're done,
Yeah.
So that's my dilemma at the moment. That's what I've been doing since this lockdown. I've been trying to work at opening my sound back up again and trusting that it's, that it's there rather than try to take somebody's head off, 300 yards in front of me.
Yeah. So are you playing on a Constellation now?
Yeah, that's what I've been playing on for the last like 8 or 9 years, a 36B.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, it's a great horn, man. If you get a good one, they're unbelievable.
Yeah, I there was someone locally who had one, and I was just like a day late getting to him.
I got about 9 of them, so if you want one, let me know.
I might take you up on that one. Yeah, my high school band director had a Constellation, and I remember him letting me borrow it every once in a while to play. And there's just something about it. I love that horn. He played that in the Jet Tone Studio B.
Sure, I had the same mouthpiece, yeah, back in the day, studio
Yeah.
mouthpiece.
Oh man, those are good old days. So speaking of gear, so you're playing Constellation. What are you using for your mouthpiece?
Well, my mouthpiece is something that I make. We've designed it. I have a buddy of mine named Kevin Delaney, and he and
Yeah.
I about, I don't know now, 6 years ago or something, met and decided that we wanted to make some mouthpieces. And so we partnered up with Peter Pickett to
Mhm.
actually make them. We did the designs, and then over the years, kind of refined them and so on and so forth. So I finally feel like I've made a piece for me that's really efficient, gets the sound I want for the most part. Nothing's ever perfect, but it's been a really fun process to learn. And we've actually made mouthpieces for a lot of guys like Brian McDonald and the Airman and Note, and
Mhm.
Kevin Burns and Seraphin Aguilar, and a bunch of
Mhm.
guys we've made mouthpieces for, and they seem to really like them. So we were originally going to launch it and make it a company that kind of goes back and forth depending on, the wind, but we still make them for ourselves, and I'm always kind of refining things.
Yeah.
But that all started with Jim New. Actually, it started with Billy Hodges. You ever hear that name?
No, no. Jim knew I know, but not Billy.
Yeah, Billy was the first lead trumpet player in the first Airman and Note.
Oh,
And
okay.
he was like one of those freaky, incredible trumpet players. He ended up in Vegas, played all the shows at the Riviera. He was the house lead trumpet player. And Billy helped me when I was in high school. I would go over to his house, and we would take my mouth back. I had a Reeves 41S. That's what I was playing at the time. And I'd say, yeah, Billy, I want to do, I want to sound like this or that. Hey, give it to me, crudgy old dude, and he put
Yeah.
his glasses on and get the micro lathe out. And then he had like a broken screwdriver, right? He had kind of dialed it down. And that was his tool, man. But the guy was so good. He knew, like he would listen to me play. He'd go, no, give it back. He'd give it to me, and then he'd just take a little metal off of here. Try that. Oh yeah, that feels good. Yeah, And so we started making mouthpieces then. That was, God, I was 16 maybe. And then that developed until Billy passed away. And then I went to Jim New, who's like, probably one of the most incredible guys on the planet for anything trumpet. I mean, he knows so much about everything. He's done everything. He's built, he worked for Zig Canstel. He worked for
Right.
Benj, all these people. He knows everything. And when it comes to mouthpieces, he's just unbelievable. So he helped me. We made a whole bunch of stuff. And then from that, I started making my own, and that's how the kind of the evolution of the whole thing has happened. But I still see Jim, I still go to Jim because he's just so knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Such a great cat.
Yeah. Well, there are some really amazing guys out there in terms of the manufacturing side and the tech side that it just blows your mind.
Greg Black is another guy that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Incredible guy. And nice, such nice people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I worked on, just refining my piece to create the right feel for me, especially after getting the Santa Fe gig, because it is just so demanding. And while I could get through it, I'd get through it, but then I'd be hurt for 2 days,
Right.
I just didn't want that anymore. I wanted to figure out something that would allow me to play like that, but not get hurt, And so now at this point, the way that I've put it together for me, some nights they never feel good. My chops almost never feel good, but there are some nights where I'll play the gig and then get done and be like, well, I could go do that again, And I attribute that not just to having, strong chops, but to having the right equipment for the job,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I finally, for me, got that balance together. I can do that now.
Yeah, well, that's cool. All right. Well, we're going to come to this segment of the show. I call these the speed studies, and so it's a rapid fire round. So I'm just going to throw some questions out at you. Yeah, warm up your brain. They're going to be all over the place. So let's just see what you come up with.
Okay.
All right. First question: who's the biggest influence on your life that is not a trumpet player?
My dad.
Okay, I figured that one. What's your favorite book?
Oh my God. Oh, you're gonna rapid fire me on that, huh? Really love To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay. What's the worst movie you've ever seen?
Oh, jeez almighty. Demolition Man.
Okay. Yeah, that was not a great movie. Um, although I did like Wesley Snipes' hairdo in that one. That was. If you weren't a trumpet player, what would you want to do?
Build houses.
Yeah. What is your favorite drink?
Arnold Palmer.
Yummy. Uh, okay, you could have a dinner party. You're having a dinner party. You can invite any three living people. They don't have to be musicians. Any three people in the world to be at that dinner party. Who would you want to have there?
Wow. They have to be alive. That's what you're saying.
Yep, they had to be alive.
Oh, the God Almighty! How are you going to ask me that? Probably former President Obama. Oh my God, this is tough, man. You know what I think I would do? I think I would put Donald Trump, Obama, and George Bush together and just see what happens. That's what I would do.
You know, I had this conversation with our mutual friend Charles Hargett, and I told him my response to his was I would like to have Obama, Trump, and Bob Costas.
Yeah,
So you can just have a head to head, and then have Costas do the play by play.
I like that.
Okay. Same scenario. You're going to throw a dinner party. You can invite any three people, but they are no longer with us. So you can bring any three people back from history. Who would they be?
Clark Terry, Maynard Ferguson, and Conrad Gazzo.
Oh man,
Yeah, that's who I'd want to talk.
that would be some party.
Yeah,
Absolutely, a lot of sound there.
yeah.
Okay, lacquer, plated, or raw?
I think lacquer. Yeah,
I can't do lacquer. My acid eats through it.
is
Just
that right?
yep,
Yeah, I
yep,
don't have any of those problems. No.
yeah. Um, what's your favorite quote?
Oh, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind.
That is a very timely quote. Speaking of which, what's your greatest fear?
Wow. Um, I don't even want to. I don't even want to give it any. I don't want to give it any energy. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give you that.
Okay, okay, that's good enough. Um, you could only have one superpower.
Mm,
What would it be?
I want to fly. Yeah. Yeah, I've dreamt about that my whole life, actually, as a kid and everything. I always have dreams that I'm flying.
Yeah. Soaring above the band.
Hmm? Oh yeah, yeah, soaring. Yeah, right. Soaring. My wife said healing. I forgot. Yeah, I have had that too. To be able to heal,
Yeah,
that'd be
yeah.
cool.
That's a popular one, I think, with a lot of people too. Um, what aspect of trumpet playing do you consider to be the most overrated?
What aspect? Maybe, God, that's tough, man. That's a tough one. Boy, oh boy, you caught me there. I don't know, actually. Maybe, technical prowess. It might be a little, depending on what you're doing, for what I do, it's not as important that I have a killer triple and double tongue as it is that I have a good sound and a good foundation, but that's part of it. So I don't know, you got me, damn it, you stumped me on that. Overrated. I think that's all important. That's the thing. Like, I can't think of one thing about trumpet playing that I wouldn't want to work on. I don't know. I'm sorry. Got me again. Damn, I'm a bad guest, man.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
You were here on that.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the flip side of that. What aspect of trumpet playing do you think is the most underrated?
Oh, I think, well, nowadays, I think sound. I think sound is underrated because most people don't have to worry about their sound so much because everybody's playing in mics and it's amplified. Like personal sound, your own thing. You'll hear a lot of guys, they sound alike. Like sometimes it's hard to tell who's playing. As a kid, like when I heard Miles Davis, or I heard Dizzy Gillespie, or I heard Bernie Glow, or I heard, any of those guys, that's, you knew in two notes, I can tell you who that is, right? That personal sound, that's missing in a lot of guys today. I hear guys that they all could be somebody else. Like, well, that, and I don't take this the wrong way. I don't mean it like this, but like a lot of Yamaha trumpets, like some people, when they play a Yamaha trumpet, sound like they're playing a Yamaha trumpet. It doesn't sound like them. It's the sound of the horn.
Right.
Does that make sense? And some people play Yamahas and you would never, I just mean that that's how I hear it sometimes. I'll go, oh, that's a Yamaha. You know what I mean? Where I'll hear Wayne play it. Now, that doesn't sound like Yamaha. It sounds like Wayne. You know what I mean? So I think what's missing in a lot of younger guys is a personality in their sound, something that makes you go, oh, that's Jim New or whoever, immediately that's who that person is.
Yeah.
And a little homogenous, and that's what I feel.
Yep. I'm with you on that one.
I'm probably going to get a lot of shit from Yamaha about that. I don't mean that they're horny. I just mean that they're so good, they have a certain sound to them. And if you don't change that, it's going to dictate it,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the same could be, said in many cases, like, for like the box,
right.
So for so many long, that's why everybody wanted to play a box. If you were in this section, you had to play a box so that because of the sound characteristics of the horn. But, I agree with you on that.
Well, like when you hear Jerry Hay play a Bach or you hear Jerry Hay play a Clicchio, it sounds like Jerry Hay.
Yeah.
You don't know that that's a Bach or a Click. You just know that's Jerry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I mean by that.
Exactly.
Plays a Yamaha, you don't know it's a Yamaha. That's Bobby Shue. It's no matter what he's playing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, absolutely. With you on that. Yeah. And I think that's like you said, it's an underrated thing because, to some degree, I think it's instilled, for better or worse, in the education system, where teachers have a sound concept, and they want they want people to have this somewhat, like you said, homogenous sound, so that you don't want your sound to be too bright, you don't want your sound to be too dark, you want to be right here in the middle, which it's okay, but then it lacks the personality. You're changing who you are. That is what's coming out of the horn. The sound, because like you studied with Gary and doing the Atom stuff. The sound starts up here. And so if you don't have a personal sound, then that means that you're losing you've lost the connection from here and here. Your heart. Right. It's not coming out the horn.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'm with you on that. So, Yamaha, sorry.
Yeah, no, I could have said anybody. I could have said whatever. Any horn that has a certain sound to it, if you don't make it your own, it's going to sound like that horn. I just thought of Yamaha.
Yeah.
Boy, the backpedaling here is unbelievable.
That's okay. All right. So, you can go back in time.
Yeah.
And correct that last statement. Now, you can go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice about music?
God.
What
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would do this. I would say, for me personally, I would say stop looking at music and start listening. Like, don't read so much. Do more here. I grew up doing shows and on big bands and all. Everything was, I'm reading everything. I tried to become a master reader and all of that. And I didn't spend as much time as I would have liked just transcribing. You know, I mean, if I could do it all again, I'd be a bebop trumpet player. That's what I love. I mean, I listen to that. That's, what I hear in my head. But I never spent the time just doing I did some, but not nowhere near what I should have done looking back now. Because I was trying to be a lead trumpet player. I was trying to work, commercially, do all of the things that I needed to have those skills. And I regret that. I would love to, just like my friend Rashawn Ross, man, that guy, if you could hear him play bebop, like he sounds like Clifford Brown. It's
Oh yeah.
ridiculous. And he can just, like, he'll go home and transcribe whatever. He'll transcribe a piano solo. His ears are just ridiculous. And, that's what I wish I had done more of. I wish I had spent more time doing that. If I could go back, I would tell myself, okay, yeah, you can do all that. Now just work on this,
Yeah. Okay, cool. And same kind of scenario, you're able to time travel, you're going to go back and talk to your younger self. What advice would you give yourself about life?
Uh, I think I would say, don't be, as a young person, don't be, oh boy, that's tough. Because I don't want to sound weird, but my mom died when I was young. I learned a lot about appreciating every day and don't take people in your life for granted. Those are the normal things, but I was fortunate enough, by an unfortunate circumstance, I was fortunate enough to learn that early on. I think I might say it's okay to enjoy life a little more. It doesn't always have to be, stress and you got to do something every minute. It's okay to sit back, take a day and enjoy yourself. I've learned that as I've gotten older, but as a young man, I didn't do that. I was constantly working, and I'd work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I wanted to accomplish something. And in doing that, I might have missed a little bit of some of the more relaxing things that are important. It's balance. I should have listened to
Right.
Perello a little more. I have it now. I do it now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very balanced now, but it took me until I was in my probably, until I was 40 before I figured all that out,
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's awesome, and I commend you for your accomplishments, your hard work, and keeping the tradition going in your family, and keeping the music alive. So, you mentioned that hopefully that once all of this COVID madness is done with it, we'll be able to see that Sinatra show on Broadway, and you'll be back into the lounges and the stages in Vegas. But in the meantime, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to see what you're up to, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Probably the best way is just through Facebook. I'm Daniel Falcone, or my music page, which I probably should update more often, is Dan Falcone. Through there. Also, santafeband.com is a cool site where we have our records and things, and you'll see where we're playing, if we're playing. I don't have a website. I never did any of that kind of thing. So, I don't have that way to get in touch with me. But yeah, through Facebook or whatever, I'll kind of keep people updated as things progress here and we get back working again.
Is Santa Fe got a new release coming up anytime in the near future?
Yeah, Jerry Lopez told me just the other day, I think he's written 6 new songs during this. So we had, I think, 3 or 4 already done that we've been playing in our rotation that we hadn't recorded yet. We just recorded Jerry Hay wrote us a horn opener. So like in our shows, every show we open with just a cappella horn thing, 6 horns. And we have 4 or 5 or 6 of them that have been written, that our guys have written, or we use the horn heads. We have one of theirs that
Right.
we use. And Jerry, when he came to see me with Celine as a gift, it was so kind. He wrote an opener for the Fat Titty Horn. He gave it to me. So we just
That's
recorded
awesome.
it remotely. We're going to re-record it in a studio, because this is a little, it's a little tough to do it that way.
Right.
But we're getting ready to make a little video for it and put it out. And so we'll have that on the album too when we re-record it. So yeah, I think probably, hopefully in the next year, we'll have a new record out, which would be great. Record.
Yeah, I know, man. It's like I still say that too.
New digital download, whatever.
Yeah. At least you didn't say 8-track. So.
I still have a gazillion cassettes, man.
Yeah, me too. All right, well, again, folks, if you have not listened to Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns, you need to do that. You need to do that right now. And if you can hopefully get down to Las Vegas once everything opens up, go check Danny out. And
come see Lady Gaga, man. It's an unbelievable show. She has it's called Jazz and Piano, and she does all great American songbook tunes. She even does Lush Life. And I'm telling you, this girl is unbelievable. She is incredible. 6,000 people. She'll sing Lush Life, and not one sound. I mean, not a glass clinking, not somebody exhaling. It's pure, like she has them, and it's incredible. I mean, who could do that nowadays?
Yeah.
Who could sing something like that and not lose the crowd? She captivates them. It's amazing. It's an incredible show.
I have to admit, when she first came out, I was a little turned off by her and kind of wrote her off. And then I kind of started listening to her a little bit more, and I saw her do a few performances where she did some standards, and I was like, that girl can sing.
Yeah, I was the same way, man. I thought, she's like a female David Bowie. She doesn't have any, but she doesn't have talent. I used to think all that. And then once we did a rehearsal and she came out and sang, holy goodness gracious. I mean, that girl's got more talent, more chops, more pure ability than just about anybody I've heard in a long time. And she wants to be a jazz singer. Like, that's her goal. Like, I don't think the pop thing really appeals to her as much anymore as the jazz stuff. She really wants to be a jazz singer. It's pretty cool.
Oh, cool. I hope I can catch that show. So actually, I hope that once everything opens up, my wife has been bugging me to get to Las Vegas at some point. So
yeah, come on, man. We'll take care of you.
Come down, hang out with you and some of the friends I have down in that area, and we'll have a nice hang. Lifetime.
Yeah, we'll do a barbecue. We always do a Trumpet barbecue.
Oh, now you're talking.
Yeah.
Now you're talking. All right. Well, Daniel, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, my friend, and I'm looking forward to us getting to know each other, even better.
Me too.
Hearing some more stories. And for those of you who joined us, thank you so much for your time. And as always, peace and slide grease. We're out. Hey, thank you so much for hanging with us today. This podcast is all about creating connection through our mutual love for the trumpet life. I hope that you learned a few things about today's guest and had some laughs along the way. Don't forget to give us a review. We love those 5-star ratings. And please share this podcast with your friends. We want to see our hang grow for show. Have a suggestion for a future topic or a guest? Hit me up at thetrumpetgurus@gmail.com. Our opening theme was written and performed by Lexi Signor, and all other music comes courtesy of The Greatest Funeral Ever. So in the words of W.C. Handy, life is like a trumpet. If you don't put anything into it, you don't get anything out. So go out there and let your trumpet sound. And I'll see you at the next hang.